And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. And today we welcome Beatrice Adenodi. Thank you so much for being here, Beatrice. You're lots of things in life, and in particular, you're joining us to talk about your latest book, Mindless Behaviors, Breaking Through Unseen Barriers. This is a great book. It's a nice light book that I personally have stuffed in my purse because when I have time, I like to thumb through it because I have little parts that I have footnoted that are my favorites. But you are also a marketing guru, an awareness advocate, and founder CEO of Mirror Inc. You also lecture, you have groups and do corporate and group classes and talk about mindless behavior. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on.
I am too. And I have to ask you first, because I thought this was a very interesting title. Why did you call it Mindless Behaviors, and what are mindless behaviors?
Well, I call it, it just came to me, actually. I started writing the book before I got the title, and I just basically was like, okay, what can spark people's attention, get their attention? So mindful behaviors is kind of like, no, let's say mindless, the things that we do. And mindless behaviors, excuse me, mindless behaviors is unconscious biases we do on a regular basis that keeps us stuck. I call them micro issues of oppression. So it starts with a seed and it can morph into anything that will eventually wreak havoc on your life. And it's basically rooted in conditioning, habits that we can pick up along the way, and also habits that we pick up in society and all inherited as well. So one example is the mask we wear, how we wear different faces through different social settings. Like we're taking one mask on, putting one mask on, and let's say we've been through a really traumatic experience in a previous relationship or an encounter. We tend to bring that baggage to the next encounter, which that sometimes could be challenging if we're looking to be in healthy situations or relationships.
Now, clearly you were inspired to do this. You had your own incident, right? I think back in 2014 that really led you to write this. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you?
Yeah, so for me, back in 2014, it was just like a huge transition in my life. I was working 90-hour weeks. I was kind of going back and forth whether I should let my business go or not. And my parents were aging, so they need help. And I feel like I was always doing a lot for my friends. And so it was almost like I abandoned myself. And so it got to the breaking point of me going to an ex's house that shouldn't be there, that I basically got to that point, why am I in this cycle? What am I doing to create this? So I started asking myself those questions. And then so it morphed into this.
You said you were working so much. What were you doing at the time that clearly was not serving you?
Yeah, I was working for a tech company as a field rep around that time. So I was running regions. So
that's a lot.
I went from 1 territory to 5 territories in 6 months. So
yeah, that's a lot. That's working for the company. You're working for the company, and where did Beatrice go after all?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All that work for somebody else, and that somebody else, you might not even know who that somebody else is for the firm, right? No, I get it. A lot of us have been there. I really get it. But that you had the courage to pivot is really something. Let's go back a little further. Talk to me about your family. You have an interesting background, would you?
Yeah, so I'm Nigerian American. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I'm first generation, and my parents are immigrants. So they came here right before I was born, a while back. And living in New Orleans, there's such it's an interesting dynamic. Yeah. There's divisions, but there are micro divisions within the cultures as well. That that we don't even talk about really. And like, you know, when I moved to Minnesota, it's kind of like I start to even become even more aware of like a lot of these decisions and how like my family, even their history, they got taken advantage of. Like, you know, depending on immigrants tend to like, depending on the situation, still trying to navigate different systems. And like, I feel like I'm the interpreter at times to that. So it's really interesting, and it made me learn quick. And
well, that's one thing that I really, really got out of the book. And I think I told you, because we spoke on the phone earlier, that I really related to. You were very observant. As a young person, you were observant. As someone navigating your young adult life and working, you've been observant, but you were able to funnel all this into something really important to help the rest of us with our mindless behaviors. Right? I mean, could you address that a little bit about how you, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm a huge pattern person, and I am very observant. So one thing I do is like, I sit back and like, I always ask questions. Those questions that I asked in the book is stuff that I ask myself all the time. And even in situations that my friends, my family, even social circles are in, I noticed that there were patterns. And I've always been like a puzzle person, like, oh, like problem solving is kind of like my thing. So like, how does things work, right? What do people do to cause this reaction? So I literally follow the pattern of how people are and like how I am and how our environments influence us. So I've always been like, oh, let's put the pieces together and like make sense of what is in front of us. And so when literally everything fell in place when I wrote the book. I'm like, oh,
that's
what
why
I've been trying to say. This is what I've been wanting to tell people. This is the patterns that we have that is wreaking havoc. And so like I was able to articulate that and put them in a succinct order.
Let's talk about some of the awareness steps that you talk about in the book, would you? Because and also after that, once we are aware, how do we make good on that? In other words, how do we keep a promise to ourselves to stop doing some of the behaviors that aren't serving us, right? So first, let's start with those awareness steps, can we?
You know, sometimes when I say once you become aware, you don't go back.
Okay.
It's like you cannot unsee something that you've seen. And the first step is actually asking yourself that question, like, how did I get here? Because in the whole book, I talk about how did we get here? And so that's that, like becoming curious and becoming like leaning into things, leaning into really uncomfortable situations and uncomfortable feeling of knowing like, oh, I did do that. So I really think that the first step is really to become curious and lean into it. And then to me, is that why. The second step is that why. And that why is that like journey, like, okay, so why do I do the things I do? And sometimes it's rooted into something that we were conditioned. We picked up along the way through a heartbreak or through a family dynamic, or like even a broken friendship, whatever that is. And then, and so researching that why is very important. And then the last step is like, you know, well, now I know, now I have this information. Now it's up to you. You have the power to change this situation over. And like what I said, it's like a seed. So I always say Mindless Behaviors is a seeding platform that basically seeds something into you, make you think, and then it brings you to a level of like, okay, now I understand that. Let me grow my roots. So it's kind of like that seed that grows into something.
Now I'm going to ask you how, because once we're aware of it, how. But first, I do want to take a small break for our sponsor, Luna. And we're going to play that for you right now. And then when we come back, I'm going to ask you, gosh, okay, I see it, I get it, but how do I make those changes? So first, let's hear from our sponsor, Luna.
Do you want a better night's sleep? Then welcome to Luna, where the mission is to elevate rest with beautifully designed sleepwear made of organic Pima and cozy cotton silks. Known for pioneering washable silks, everything Luna designs is to improve your rest with their state-of-the-art products, such as no-twist waistbands, strategic ventilation, and stay-put sleeves. Luna was founded by LA native Ashley Merle, and the company prides itself on paying attention to every detail. Check out these beautiful products. They're so comfy. You're going to finally want to toss your old t-shirt and get yourself into some of these beautiful sleeping sets. There's robes and so much more. Go to luna.co and use Deborah20 as your discount code. That's DEBORAH20 at luna.co and join the Better Rest revolution.
Thank you to Luna. And now here we are back with our interview. So let's pick that up. How? Because I will tell you, I'm asking for myself. Very often I can recognize, all right, Deborah, I'm doing this again. But I often have a hard time breaking the habit. And it depends upon what it is. Maybe something that I'm continuously thinking about, something I shouldn't be eating late at night when nobody's looking. Like I really have a hard time calming that little inner child in me to say, come on, no. But yeah, how do you do that?
So one of the things is, it's unfortunate that I'm gonna have to say this. We picking a challenging situation, something that is like wreaking havoc or something that is reoccurring in our lives, right? Like you, for me, I need to like stop eating bread. And like, right. And like, okay, so what other alternatives can I do to stop eating bread? Let me back up for a second. It's really simple. I'm noticing that I'm breaking out when I eat a certain type of bread. Why can't I stop eating it? So I had to figure out what is causing the breakout. Now I know it's the bread, right? So, and the thing is that instead of going cold turkey, I need to wean myself off of it. Is this almost like an addiction? How do I like take steps of getting off of this so it won't wreak havoc on my body, right? So you just put a plan together. And like knowing that if you go back to eating the way I have, it's going to wreak havoc and it's going to get worse, and I'm not going to feel good.
Right.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, but at least you're able to act on that, right? You put your little plan together and you can act on it. But I think for a lot of people, I'm one of them, I might even have that plan. And all of a sudden that bread is speaking to me. And there goes my plan. Boing. And that's where I always say, gosh, Deborah, you have to get up and do this again. Because that seems to be my lesson. Like, okay, Deborah, you know what and how to do it. But you gotta carry through. It's almost like the follow through. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
What I always tell people is that like if you have a challenging situation in your life, you identify it. What is it about the situation is irking me? Like rip it apart. I'm good at ripping things apart. And then then you get to the bottom of it and then you're like, okay. And so that's step one, like really identifying the real root of the challenge. And and that's one how. And then the second step is, okay, let me look at it from another perspective. So like you might be having like a problem at work with this particular coworker. You don't even know, you don't like them. You don't even know why you don't like them. And then once you get through this process, you're like, okay, let me get to the root of the reason why. And then it could come down to, they turn in things late or they're unorganized, whatever it is, right? So the thing is, I always say switch lanes, switch lens. What if you're the like switch perspectives, right? And like, what is it about, look at it from another situation and what is it? And then look at it from another lens that is clear. So it's just switching another perspective of seeing it. So you can say walking out your body. or not even being your not even being in your shoes, but stepping into another shoe. The problem is I don't think people are empathic enough to step out and look at it from another perspective. We always have this tunnel vision.
Yeah. But I want to just say something. That's what your book is good at. It breaks down how we can look at these mindless behaviors, right? And you really break it down for us so that we can see it for ourselves and say, yeah, that's what I thought, right?
Yeah, from a different perspective, looking at the behaviors from another point of view that you never even think about.
I want to talk a little bit about being in a reactive state. That also has a lot to do with the masks that we wear. Why do we get into a reactive state, and how do we get out of it?
Ooh. The thing is that our world is so fast. We're constantly stimulated by different things, right? So like this is how violence happens. So if you turn on the news, like you see all of this stuff, you see glut, you see murder, you see all of these different situations. And then at work, you're constantly stimulated. At home, you're constantly stimulated, you're on your phone and stuff like that. And I feel like we have been conditioned to we've been given invisible books. Follow the instructions and you'll be fine, right? So nobody ever questioned who wrote the book, number one. Why am I living the book that somebody else wrote, but not mine, number two. And then how can I get out the book and create my own book, and create my own story? So 2020, I'll give you an example. 2020 was a good example. I always say it's 2020 vision, that clarity that the world stopped. And one thing that people start looking at is like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
Start really asking ourselves that question. Is this what I really want to do? Do I really want to do something else? Why am I in this marriage? I don't even like the person.
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and watching right now saying, oh, amen, I've got you. But that's actually kind of funny, but go ahead.
So like, there are so many situations like when you're in a reactive state, there's no thinking or processing anything. You don't process anything. And an average person, I'm sorry to say, has not processed even their lives that they're living within.
No, we're just going on. You know what? A great example I could give you, being in LA, sometimes you're just stuck on a freeway and you're just sitting there going, and why am I doing this? A friend of mine just came back from a very peaceful place on a vacation. It was not expensive. It was lovely and peaceful, organic nature and nothing like fancy. And she said to me, she was stuck in traffic and she called me. She said, why do I do this anyway? Like, who programmed me to say that I have to be sitting here? And she's pivoting. She's making the change. She's just like, that's it. This is where I need to be. And she sort of got rid of her own mindless behavior and the mask that she's wearing to go through the life that she thinks she should be going through. Right. So you made such a great point. Like, why am I even doing this? Right. We have to ask ourselves why, correct?
Yeah. And I feel like we don't ask ourselves why enough.
No, not at all. And then you also brought up the violence in our society. What do you make of that with the mindless behaviors going on there?
Violence is really rooted in mindless behaviors. People get mad. They're in their emotions. They're not regulated. They're not seeing it from another perspective. They're only seeing it from somebody did something to me. But they haven't seen it from a perspective. Why am I angry?
Right.
What is it about the situation that is not serving me?
Right.
And I think violence is a reflection. When violence happen like that, especially the mass shootings, everything that's going on, like all of these poverty and stuff, it's the sign that our needs are not being met. It's a symptom of a poisonous society, that the venom has not been taken out. And
gotcha.
and I feel like some of the root is the leaders that we have in different social settings, putting band-aids on rooted problems and not really sitting there and really thinking about it. So what we have is that we have an army, we have the leaders that are highly reactive to their situations, and then we got the people highly reactive, and then we got the civilians that the leaders are leading that are highly reactive to their situation. This is an atomic bomb because nobody is stepping back.
No, and it's a little, you know, I've been watching this behavior because I am a newscaster, and I watch this behavior, and it's actually spinning out of control. And in my opinion, throughout society, not just here, but everywhere, it's spinning out of control and getting worse. And I think it's because nobody's listening. People are just going, you know, it's almost like accountability, community, something is just not there, where everyone is serving their own needs and not necessarily even serving the needs of not just themselves, but the community. It's a complicated situation to even talk about, but it also is rooted in the mindless behavior. I briefly wanted to talk about the masks we wear. Is there like a number of masks that we all have? Like, Deborah, maybe you have 10 or whatever. Like, do we all have a certain number of masks, like for work, for church, for the neighbors, something like that?
We do, depend on how many behaviors.
Right.
Depending on the amount of behaviors. So like, you know, you can walk down the street and know that, like, and have a conversation with somebody and know that they're living a lie. Somebody that have an affair, somebody is not even open and honest, that lies a lot. Somebody that is like, you know, they have all these situations, they're wearing these face, right?
Right.
In these masks. But who taught us how to do that? We inherited these masks from someone. So some of these masks are inherited. Some of these are masks are stuff that we are conditions that we came into, and I feel like since we've been dealt this invisible book, we don't feel that we can be ourselves. And then that question is, do we know who we are?
Yeah, you address a little of that on page 107, letting past experiences affect the present explanation. And then you talk about our lessons versus our bitterness. I mean, you really go through quite a lot in this book. Easy to read, easy to pick up about some of our behaviors, and sort of give us something to think about I wasn't aware of that I might be behaving in this way. Then you also have a little question and answer period here in the book, in many of the chapters. Is it worth it to carry the pain of a situation when it no longer serves me? When I read a book like this, I like to sit down in a quiet place and take these questions seriously, because if we do, everybody, there's a lot we can get out of something like this, a lot we can get out of a book like this, so that it sits with us, right? When we're having a quiet moment, and we can repeat some of the lessons that we can get here. Do you have an excerpt that you'd like to read for us? Something that's particularly important to you that you want to make sure that our readers know?
Oh, I can read the introduction. This is one of my favorite, actually.
Yeah. You know, I said that when you said that to me earlier, I said, gosh, it's interesting that maybe one of the areas where I footnoted the most, I also found it very, very interesting. I mean, you don't have to read the whole thing. It's many pages, but maybe a paragraph from it that speaks to you.
Yeah. I can read the beginning. I remember sitting in history class as a child and studying the different wars. Each year, I've learned about conflicts that repeat themselves in different times and places, divisions that needlessly isolated groups from each other. I've learned racism, struggle, heartbreak, violence, deception, manipulation, dependency, segregation, disconnection, unfairness, and judgment, all before the age of 18. The message I took away was that humans are steeped in their biases from such a young age that we replicate what we see through our lives. Lessons about how we might overcome these biases and mend our divisions are few and far between. Most humans live their lives on the shoreline, boxing themselves in with self-limited beliefs. All this does is keep us wrapped in a beach towel of placid contentment with an inability to swim out to the deep waters to explore our ultimate potential and learns what's keeping us stuck. We play, build, and expand on the shores, advancing this complacent mindset through successive generations. Over time, people cling even more tightly to traditions, systems, institutions, social norms, and inherited beliefs that, while quote unquote safe, no longer serve them. All these systems and beliefs in turn create communication barriers, making it difficult for people to understand others' perceptions and viewpoints.
That is so astute of you, and so, I mean, incredible that as a young person, I think I said this the very first thing when I opened up our interview. You're such an observer of life and you take it all in. I think that's wonderful, but you also allow us to learn from you, because it's almost like you're a mirror, and so much of what you see, I could see in myself as well. And there's many lessons in this book that I think so many of us could think about and learn and just help ourselves. I also wanted to mention to people, because when I first saw a photo of you, I thought, gosh, she is so beautiful. Your skin is gorgeous. I'm not going to ask what you do for all that, but you also model, right? You're a model.
Yeah, I do some modeling. I kind of teetered off through the years, but I'm still in it. Commercial print. I do, film. So depending on what it is, I still do it.
Yeah, tell us a little bit else about you that you enjoy doing. Travel or education or just anything else about you.
I do travel. I love traveling. I haven't traveled a little bit. Seems like the airlines can't get their stuff together. So hopefully I'll travel later this year. But I love writing, hanging out with friends. And I have my consulting firm called Mirror Inc. So it's mirror, of course. Everything's about mirrors with me. That's how Mindless Behaviors is born.
Right.
And I help small businesses and entrepreneurs gain clarity in their work and help them become better problem solvers. So I do that and I love it. And also the different programs I have, it's kind of almost like a puzzle piece for me. So it's unraveling the person within the business and also putting the business together.
Yeah. And one other little nugget, I believe that you studied opera when you were in school for a bit. Is that true?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Many years ago.
Do you sing? Was that it that you studied, or is that what part of opera did you study? I found that sort of fascinating.
So I was the mezzo soprano. In college I studied and I toured. Yeah. And it was for a couple of years, but I was singing. I moved out to Minnesota and sang, but I kind of tater off on it a little bit. Maybe I'll pick it up soon. I don't know.
Yeah, why not? When you have some free time, it sounded like something, when I read that about you, I thought, that's one of those things you can come back to later in life and say, gosh, I really enjoyed studying that. I think I'm going to pick that up again. When I thought about that and I read more about you, I thought, that's interesting that she also studied some opera. So gosh, I really enjoyed talking to you. Do you want to leave our listeners and viewers with a takeaway that you want to make sure? And please, everybody, look up Beatrice on her website and also pick up the book Mindless Behaviors, which I'm sure they could pick up on your website, right, and Amazon and everywhere else. But do you have any nuggets you'd like to leave our people with?
Yeah, like one major one is slow down. Take things in and become curious of your life and your environments that you live within. I always say that. Slow down. Because the more
Can
we slow down,
Can we in this crazy society? We can.
We can.
Okay. Yeah.
Or life will make you slow down.
Say that again.
Life will make you slow down.
Right. So if you don't take the time to slow down a little bit, everybody, life will make you slow down. I think that's a great nugget to remember. Just slow down a little bit. Take it in. Look at the behaviors that you're displaying out there. So gosh, thank you so much, Beatrice. I so enjoyed speaking with you and you sharing a little bit about your book, Mindless Behaviors. And anybody who wants to work with you, right, to check out your website, that would be great. And you could find our interview on Deborah Kobylt Live on all audio and video platforms for a podcast. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and just about everywhere, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and just about anywhere you get your podcasts, you'll find us and our interview with Beatrice. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Luna, for sponsoring us. And we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.